Keep hanging on, because if you took that leap of faith and you've been praying that, you know God is faithful. He is going to get you to that promise, and it is going to be so absolutely worth it. And just know what you're doing right now in the hang time, that growth that is happening in the hang time, is what you are going to need to sustain the promise that He has already prepared for you. That promise is waiting for you. That growth during hang time is so much bigger than the growth it takes to actually take the leap. Hi, and welcome to the Christ-Driven Woman Podcast, the recommended podcast for Christian female entrepreneurs and really any woman who wants to grow closer to Christ. Whether you are just starting out in business, a seasoned entrepreneur, or a stay-at-home mom, you, sister, were created for far more than you could possibly ask or imagine. I'm Charisse Burton, Christian Certified Master Business and Life Coach, and from my experience growing from beyond the impossible as a teenage runaway to a successful CEO building multiple six-figure businesses across multiple industries, I will teach you how to hit your first 10K month and then go far beyond that using my proven systems. These strategies will help you build a business that defies expectations and also will grow your faith beyond measure. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, and welcome back to today's episode of the Christ-Driven Woman Podcast. I am Charisse Burton, your host, and today I'm kind of excited. I'm not really sure why, but it might be because of the topic, but we are talking today about what happens, what does it look like, when you take the leap of faith, but you don't land in the promise either as quickly as you thought you would, or the promise doesn't look like what you thought it would. Because we all know, we've talked about leaps of faith. We know what leaps of faith are. We know that so many times we have to get our courage up, and we have to pray, and we have to really build our faith and belief. And, it can be so hard sometimes to take those leaps of faith. We can be right there on the edge. And it can be so difficult to let go of the ledge, to take that leap of faith that the Lord is calling you to. However, here's one thing I think that we don't understand. And because I know I'm guilty of it, we talked about the quantum leap in the last episode, and I'm guilty of thinking, okay, well, I took the quantum leap, or I let go of the edge. I took the leap of faith that you asked me to, so shouldn't I be blessed right now, or shouldn't I be where I'm supposed to be, or shouldn't I be in the promise right now? But what happens when you're not? Because sometimes when you take the leap of faith, the promise takes longer to get to than you realized. And what I call that, I played a little tiny bit of basketball growing up, but I know what hang time is. Hang time is, whenever somebody goes to shoot a basket and they're in the air, that hang time before they come back down to the ground, we call that hang time. So what I'm looking at here is when you take that leap of faith, you let go of the ledge, and you're trusting God, and you know He's got you, but then you're in hang time, and you don't realize that you're going to be in hang time, or the hang time takes way longer than you thought. Then what? What does that mean? That's hard. I'm telling you, that is hard. I actually believe the growth required to stay in the hang time and be patient so that you are waiting for the promise to come is harder than it is to let go of the ledge. I always think about, the old cartoon Wile E. Coyote, and what was it? Wile E. Coyote and the running bird, the Roadrunner. Not the running bird, the Roadrunner. I absolutely have seen and can see myself being like that Wile E. Coyote who runs off the cliff and then realizes he has nothing underneath him. And so he turns back around and he's just running in the air trying to get back to the ledge. I can see myself doing that because here's what I think. Sometimes if we know how long it's going to take to get to the promise, we might not let go of the ledge. We might stay there because we don't want it to take longer. We want it to be immediate, or at least I do. So I can see myself. I can remember taking a leap of faith and thinking, okay, this is way longer and way harder than I thought. I think I'm just going to go back to what I'm used to, what I'm comfortable, where I feel safe, which is that ledge that was keeping me from moving forward, that was keeping me from stepping into what God called me to. So I want to speak to that today. I want to speak to anyone who is in that hang time, who has taken that leap of faith, trusted God, know He's with them, know He's got them, but they're still in the hang time. And I just want to tell you, sister, keep hanging on, because if you took that leap of faith and you've been praying that, you know God is faithful. He is going to get you to that promise, and it is going to be so absolutely worth it. And just know what you're doing right now in the hang time, that growth that is happening in the hang time is what you are going to need to sustain the promise that He has already prepared for you. He's already got it prepared. That promise is waiting for you. But that growth that takes place during that hang time is so astronomical. I really, truly believe that growth during hang time is so much bigger than the growth it takes to actually take the leap, right? So I want you to remember to stay focused. I want to remind you that if He told you to take the leap of faith, He is with you. And you know what else I want to add to that? Even if you weren't sure if He was telling you to take the leap of faith or not, because God is who He is, and He is so faithful and loving and kind and generous, He's going to be with you there no matter what, and He's going to make it turn out for the good. We can know that. So what if now you took that leap of faith and you made it through the hang time, but now the promise isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be? Maybe it's harder. Maybe you were supposed to move to a new job. You were supposed to move to a new city and take a new job. And it was a leap of faith. And you were praying and praying and praying. And you just felt like the Lord was pushing you and telling you to go. And you said, okay, I'm doing it. And you took that leap of faith. And you got to that new place. And you got to that new job. And the new job isn't what you expected. Because, when I kind of feel like when the Lord is telling us to take a leap of faith, that the promise is going to be all good. But you know what? That's not always the case, which I'm just, again, really honest and transparent. I don't like that. I don't like that. But I do love God and I trust God. So even in that time of growth, maybe that's still the hang time. Maybe you're not at the actual promise yet. Or maybe your leap of faith was going to help someone else. Ooh, that's a new one. Maybe your leap of faith. Yes, of course, God is about more than one thing, and you all will grow. And if that leap of faith was to be an example or was to help someone else grow, you're still going to grow and you're still going to be blessed by it. But again, we don't determine when and we don't determine how. Maybe the city that you go to, that you're moved to, is amazing. And so many other opportunities have come your way since you took that job that you don't love, that's not your favorite, that you're disappointed in, that you thought was going to be the promise. Maybe it's everything else around it. Maybe God just wanted to get you there because of the opportunities, the other opportunities that were going to become available to you. There's so many different ways to look at it. And we as humans have such tunnel vision. Or maybe that's just me. I don't think it is, but maybe it's just me. So when I get to the promise, or what I think is the promise, and it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to be, sometimes I get frustrated. Sometimes I get aggravated. Sometimes I turn my nose up at it. Again, just being really transparent here. But I also will always trust God and believe that He is doing something bigger than I could ask or imagine. He is doing something bigger than just me. He's doing something for His kingdom, and I get to be a part of that. But when you're in that place, it's not easy. It's not easy to see that, okay, I took this leap of faith. I had my hang time, took forever to get to what I think is the promise, and now the promise isn't what I thought it was going to be, and I don't know what to do. I'm not happy. I don't like this. So what do? We got to go back to the Lord. We got to go back to the Lord and ask Him to show us, okay, I did these things. I felt like you were calling me to do these things. I was obedient. And if you will, Lord, show me, because He says, I saw somebody the other day say that, I saw them do this little video, and it said that her father taught her that God's phone number was Jeremiah 33:3. I just love that. I will never forget that, because we know in Jeremiah 33:3, He says, He will always answer us. Call to me and I will answer you. I love that. So we know He will answer us. It might not be how we want it, or it might not be in the time frame, but we can always go to Him, and we can always trust that even if we're in the hang time, even if we took that leap of faith and we're thinking, what in the world? I'm still hanging out here. I took that leap of faith and I left that job, and I still haven't found a house to live in. And I know you called me this way, and now what am I supposed to do? Or whatever the hang time looks like for you. I know somebody right now is feeling that pressure of being in the hang time and asking God and not understanding and feeling like, because I've been there too, taking that leap of faith and thinking, okay, God, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or when am I going to get into the promise? Because this is hard and this is taking way longer than I thought it would. Of course, that's not that long for me, but even sometimes those who are patient will feel like it's taking way longer than they want it to. And again, that's that hang time, because we have to grow. We have to have the growth. We have to have the strength to get to the promise. And when we get to that promise, be able to uphold it. I wrote a devotional probably, oh my goodness, maybe 7 years ago. The Lord just spoke to me and I just wrote it. And it was really about exercising. It was about a bodybuilder and going into competition. And if you don't know, my husband, Andy, was a competitive bodybuilder when he was, I think, 18, long time ago. So he's always worked out almost his whole life. And now we have one of our sons, the one who lives in LA, he works out all the time. But the point of that is, you can't just go into a gym and pick up and start doing, 250-pound weights. I don't know enough about bodybuilding to speak to specific types of weights, but you just can't go in there and pick up, 250-pound weights and do 10 reps with it. You just can't. And if you're going to be in a competition, you're not going to just walk in. You're going to prepare. You're going to work out. You're going to build a routine. You're going to build a workout exercise routine. You're going to start building your muscle. The way your muscle grows and grows is going to allow you to then, when you get to the competition or when you walk into the gym that day, after you have had that time of growth, after you've had that time of building your muscle, then yes, you could go in and probably do the 250-pound weight. But before then, with no growth, that's not going to happen, or you're going to hurt yourself. So I hope you understand the analogy that I'm making here is that when we take the leap of faith and we haven't landed in the promise, just keep remembering that Jesus is right there with you, that your muscle and your strength is growing so that when you land in the promise, you will be able to sustain it. You will be able to hold it up. You will be able to do what God has called you to do within the promise. And if you've taken that leap of faith and you feel like you've gone through the hang time and maybe you feel like you've landed, but it doesn't feel like a promise or it's not the promise that you thought it was going to be, go back and ask the Lord to give you some clear vision. Ask him to remind you what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because he will tell you, he will answer you and tell you amazing things that you do not even know. But don't feel like you're alone. That can be a really lonely place whenever you're still in hang time or you've landed in a promise that you didn't think or doesn't feel like a promise. Just go back to what the Lord told you when he encouraged you and told you that it was time to take this leap of faith. He will always stand with you. He will always stand with you. I can remember when I ran away from home. I was 17. I will never forget it. It was December 7th, 1985. Yep, long time ago. And I didn't do things like that. And that was a massive leap of faith for me. I didn't rock the boat. It was an abusive home. There was a lot of physical and other abuse, but I still preferred to stay hidden or stay quiet. I did not rock the boat. But I had reached a point that it couldn't go on anymore. And I had to take this leap of faith to run away. And I know that wouldn't be something that typically people would say was a leap of faith or would say that it was good. But from my background and my past, that was one of the most pivotal, powerful growth experiences of my life. And what that looked like for me, again, was, taking that leap of faith, running away from home, being on my own. I had my little brother with me. We slept in my friend's car for a few nights, made it across a couple of states. I went and lived with my dad for a while, which was not great. Got back involved in some things that I shouldn't have been involved with. Got involved with some people I shouldn't have been involved with. Ended up getting to Abilene Christian University. That was much better, but all of that time was hang time. I would say that I did not hit the promise until I met or married Andy. So that was probably, 5 years of hang time. 5 years of hang time. Lots of growth, lots of choices, lots of wondering, what's the next step? Where am I about to land now? It just felt like I took a leap of faith and I was continuing to fall because there was so much moving and choices and running and just so much for those 5 years. But the promise when I met my husband is like nothing I could have imagined being a part of in this marriage. I dreamed about husbands like that, but I didn't really believe they were for me. So the example here is not about a good marriage. The example here is about the leap of faith and how sometimes, I took that leap, but it was 5 years of hang time before I landed in the promised land. And then, of course, there's so many more leaps along the way and after that. And it all requires growth so that we can sustain the next level of blessing and bless others and be the example and the leader and the person God created us to be, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It is growing into who God created us to be and our identity in Him before we were even born. What He already had prepared for us, who He already called us to be as His daughter before we were even born. That's what I think every choice in our life is about. Getting closer to Him and helping other people see Him and get closer to Him. So if you're in that place of hang time, or if you are in that place where you're like, is this the promise that I get after taking that leap? Not feeling like a promise. Well, maybe you're still in hang time, or maybe that promise was for someone else. So ask the Lord. Ask the Lord. All right, my friends, y'all take care. Hey, thank you so much for being here today and listening. Please leave a review and tell me what hit your heart the most. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to partner with me and the production of this podcast, just head over to this Patreon link. Thanks so much.